Welcome to the Velvet Crown Tales. Today's tale is called The Vampire's Forbidden Wife.
Lady Isolde Vane knew her husband was unfaithful. What she had not known was how little effort he would make to hide it. The music from the ballroom drifted through the open doors, soft and elegant, while laughter spilled across the marble terrace. Inside, the most powerful families in the kingdom raised crystal glasses to celebrate Isolde and Lord Garen's second wedding anniversary. Outside, Garen had another woman pressed against the garden wall. Isolde stood beneath the stone archway, hidden by shadow, and watched her husband kiss the young widow as though the celebration inside belonged to someone else. His hand rested at the woman's waist. Her fingers curled in the front of his coat. Neither of them appeared worried about being seen. That was what hurt most. Not the kiss. Not even the betrayal. It was the certainty that Garen believed Isolde would endure it. Again, the widow noticed her first. Her eyes opened, and for one startled second, shame crossed her face. She pulled away, but Garen only turned his head. His expression did not change. Isolde. He said her name with mild irritation, as though she had interrupted a business discussion. The widow quickly gathered her skirts. "My lady, I—" "Go inside," Isolde said. The woman hesitated. Garen gave her a reassuring look. "You heard my wife." "My wife." He spoke the words easily, even while another woman's lipstick marked his mouth. The widow hurried away. Isolde waited until the ballroom doors closed behind her. Then she looked at Garen. Was bringing her here necessary? He wiped the corner of his mouth with his thumb. "You were not supposed to come outside." A bitter laugh escaped her. "So your only regret is being careless?" "I have no intention of arguing tonight." "You never do." Garen stepped closer, lowering his voice. "This marriage has responsibilities. You have your place and I have mine. Your place appears to be in the arms of every woman who accepts an invitation." His jaw tightened. It was not guilt. It was annoyance. "You have a beautiful home," he said. "Your family's debts are paid. You wear my name and no one in this kingdom dares disrespect you." "You disrespect me. That is different." The words settled between them. Simple, calm, cruel. Isolde stared at the man she had married because her family had begged her to, the man she had tried to respect, the man she had defended even after the first affair and the second. She had spent 2 years swallowing humiliation so that her parents could keep their estate and her younger sisters could marry without scandal. And Garen had mistaken her sacrifice for weakness. He moved past her toward the ballroom. "Fix your expression before we return. People are watching." Isolde caught his arm. For the first time that evening, Garen looked surprised. "You will not touch her again," she said. His surprise turned to amusement. "And what will you do if I do?" She released him. Garen leaned closer, his breath warm against her ear. "You will do what you have always done," he murmured. "Nothing." Then he returned to the celebration. Isolde remained alone beneath the archway. The night air cooled the tears in her eyes before they could fall. Beyond the gardens, the forest stretched toward the northern mountains, dark beneath the moon. The servants whispered that vampires still crossed those woods. Garen called the stories foolish. Isolde knew better. Years ago, before duty had placed a ring on her finger, she had met one. A man with silver-dark eyes, and a voice that always sounded as though he were holding something back. A man who had loved her so quietly that she had convinced herself she had imagined it. Vale. She had not spoken his name in 2 years. Until now. "Vale," she whispered into the darkness. The candles along the terrace flickered. A cold wind moved through the roses. Then a voice came from behind her. "You should not call for things you were taught to fear." Isolde turned. He stood at the edge of the terrace, as though the shadows had opened and released him. Vela Draven looked almost exactly as she remembered, tall, pale, and dressed entirely in black, with dark hair brushing the collar of his coat. Time had not touched his face. But something in his eyes had changed. They were colder now. Hungrier. He looked toward the ballroom doors. I heard what he said to you. Isolde's heart began to pound. You were watching me. I have been watching this house for 3 nights. Why? His gaze returned to hers. For one brief moment, the coldness disappeared. Because someone intends to kill you. The anger inside her faltered. What? Vela stepped closer, though he left a careful distance between them. Your husband has made enemies, he said. One of them believes hurting you will punish him. Then warn Garen. I did not come for Garen. His answer was immediate. Isolde studied him. Why did you come? Vela said nothing. The music continued inside. Guests laughed. Her husband raised a glass as though he had not just torn open the last fragile piece of their marriage. Vela's eyes lowered to her hand. To her wedding ring. His expression hardened. You should go back to your celebration, he said. Isolde almost laughed. You appear after 2 years, tell me someone wants me dead, and then ask me to return to my husband. Yes. Why? Because staying near me would be more dangerous. She stepped toward him. Vela's body became still. Not relaxed. Controlled. You disappeared before my wedding, she said. You left without saying goodbye. It was necessary. You knew I loved you. His gaze snapped to hers. The admission hung between them, too honest to take back. Vela's voice lowered. Do not say that. Why? Because I am married. Because I remember how it felt to hear you say it before. I never said it before. You did not need to. He turned away. Isolde reached for him, then stopped before her fingers touched his sleeve. I need help, she said. Vela looked over his shoulder. My husband will not protect me. My family cannot. If someone truly intends to kill me, I need someone who is not afraid of Garen. You need a guard. I need an ally. His eyes moved over her face, searching for uncertainty. And you believe that should be me. I believe you came here, even though you knew you should stay away. Vela's jaw tightened. That was a mistake. Then make another one. Silence stretched between them. He moved closer at last. Close enough that Isolde felt the cold of his body through the night air. Close enough that she could see the faint red at the edge of his irises. His attention dropped to her mouth. Only for a second. But she saw it. So this is what he has done, Vela murmured. What? He has finally made you stop forgiving him. Isolde swallowed. Yes. Vela lifted his hand, then paused before touching her face. He waited. The restraint in that small hesitation affected her more than Garen's careless kisses ever had. Isolde leaned into his palm. Vela closed his eyes. His thumb moved slowly across her cheek, brushing away the tear she had refused to let fall. You should not trust me, he whispered. I trusted my husband. His eyes opened. That is not an answer. No, she held his gaze. It is a lesson. The ballroom doors opened behind them. Voices approached. Vela caught her waist and drew her into the darkness beside the archway. Isolde's breath left her. Her body pressed against his. His hand remained firm at her waist, while the other rested against the stone beside her head. He had moved quickly to hide them, but now neither of them moved away. They stood inches apart. His eyes darkened. Tell me to release you, he said. She could hear the strain in his voice. No, Isolde. I called for you. You were angry. I am still angry. Anger is not desire. Her fingers closed around the edge of his coat. No, she whispered, but it made me stop lying about it. Vela stared at her. The voices drew nearer. His thumb pressed lightly against her waist. Isolde tilted her face toward his. For one breath she thought he might kiss her. Instead, he lowered his forehead to hers. "You are still his wife," he said. "And he has never behaved like my husband. That does not make this right." "No." Her lips nearly brushed his when she spoke again. "But it makes it honest." The footsteps passed without anyone seeing them. Still, Vela did not release her. Neither did Isolde step away. At last he looked toward the garden. "Meet me tomorrow night at the abandoned chapel," he said. "Come alone." "To discuss the threat." His gaze returned to her mouth. "To decide whether I am your ally." Then he vanished into the darkness, leaving Isolde with one hand against the stone and her heart beating harder than it had in years. Inside, her husband laughed with another woman. Isolde looked down at her wedding ring. For the first time since Garin placed it on her finger, it no longer felt like a promise. It felt like a warning. The abandoned chapel stood beyond the northern gardens, where the estate road narrowed into a path, and the trees grew close enough to hide the moon. Isolde had not been there since childhood. Back then, the chapel had belonged to a small farming village. Now the village was gone, the roof had partially collapsed, and thorned vines climbed the stone walls like dark veins. She arrived alone. At least she hoped she had. The hood of her cloak shadowed her face as she stepped through the broken doorway. Inside, moonlight spilled through the ruined ceiling and stretched across the cracked floor. Vela stood near the old altar. He had removed his coat. His black shirt was open slightly at the throat, and the pale skin beneath it caught the light. For a moment, Isolde forgot why she had come. His gaze moved over her carefully. "You should not have worn perfume." She blinked. "That is your greeting. It makes you easier to follow." "Did someone follow me?" "No." She took a breath. "Then perhaps you could begin by explaining who wants me dead." Vela did not answer immediately. Instead, he moved past her and closed what remained of the chapel door. The room darkened. "You are not the target," he said. "You told me someone intended to kill me." "They do." "That sounds very much like being the target." "You are a message." Isolde's unease deepened. "To Garin." "Yes." She almost laughed. "My husband would survive my death." Vela's expression sharpened. "You truly believe that?" "I know him." "No, you know the version of him he permits you to see." Isolde folded her arms beneath her cloak. "And you do." "I know what he owes." The words settled heavily between them. "What does that mean?" Vela walked toward the altar. On the stone surface lay a folded letter sealed with dark red wax. He handed it to her. The seal bore the mark of a serpent wrapped around a crown. Isolde had never seen it before. She opened the letter. The writing was brief. "The debt will be collected through blood." Her fingers tightened around the paper. "What debt?" "Your husband borrowed money from a vampire house 3 years ago." Isolde looked up sharply. "Garin despises vampires." "He despises anything he cannot control." Vela's voice held no humor. "He used their money to preserve his estates, secure his title, and arrange his marriage to you." The chapel suddenly felt colder. "My marriage?" "Your family name gave him access to the royal court. Your inheritance gave him credibility. You were not merely a bride, Isolde, you were collateral." The words struck harder than she expected. She turned away from him. For 2 years, she had told herself she had married Garin for her family. Now she was learning Garin had married her for the same reason. Not affection. Not admiration. Usefulness. Behind her, Vela said quietly, "I am sorry." She laughed once without warmth. "You always say very little, and yet somehow you choose the words that hurt most." I would rather hurt you with the truth than comfort you with a lie. Is that what you told yourself when you disappeared? He went still. Isolde faced him. The distance between them felt deliberate now, a barrier he had built and maintained with care. You knew about Garin before I married him, she said. Yes. You knew he was dangerous. Yes. And you said nothing. I had no proof. You had enough to leave. His eyes darkened. I left because staying would have made things worse. For whom? For you. She moved closer. That answer is becoming tiresome. Vela did not retreat, but every muscle in his body tightened. You were promised to him. I was not yet married. You belonged to a human family with a reputation to protect. I belonged to myself. His jaw tightened. I know that now. No, she said. You know it now because another man has already taken everything he wanted from me. His expression changed. Not anger. Pain. It passed so quickly she almost missed it. Vela stepped toward her. You believe I did not suffer. I believe you had the luxury of leaving. And I believe you have no idea what it cost me. His voice was lower now. Rougher. The careful control she remembered was beginning to slip. Isolde's breath caught. What did it cost you? Vela looked at her mouth. Then away. More than I was willing to admit. Silence filled the ruined chapel. Outside, wind moved through the trees. Isolde set the letter down. So what happens now? You return home. No. Isolde. You asked me to come here so we could decide whether you were my ally. I have decided. And I am not. The answer should have angered her. Instead, she noticed the way he refused to look at her. You came to warn me. Yes. You watched my house for 3 nights. Yes. You entered Garen's land knowing his guards would kill you if they found you. Yes. She stepped closer. But you are not my ally. No. You are a very poor liar. Vela finally met her eyes. The red at their edges had deepened. You should not test me tonight. Why? Because you are angry. You said that before. And you are still married. You said that too. His voice sharpened. Do you imagine repetition makes either fact less dangerous? No. She stopped directly in front of him. But perhaps danger is the only honest thing left in my life. Vela stared down at her. The air between them felt charged. Isolde could hear his breathing, though it was slower than a human's, controlled, measured. His hands remained at his sides. That restraint made her bolder. You knew I loved you, she said. His throat moved. Do not. You knew. Yes. The word came out hard. Isolde's chest tightened. And did you love me? He turned his face away. She reached up and touched his jaw. Vela caught her wrist. Not painfully, but fast. His eyes flashed red. You do not know what you are asking. I am asking for the truth. His grip loosened, though he did not release her. The truth will not free you. It might free me from wondering. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he lowered her hand. I loved you before I understood what love would demand of me. Her breath stopped. Vela continued, his voice quiet. I loved you when you still believed your life would be kind. I loved you when you spoke of duty as though duty would reward you. I loved you the night you told me your family had chosen Garin. Isolde's eyes burned. And you left? Yes. Why? Because if I had stayed, I would have taken you. The words landed between them. Vela's control broke, just enough for her to see what lay beneath it. need, regret, possession. He stepped closer. I would have carried you away from your family, your name, your future, he said, and you would have hated me when you understood what you had lost. You did not give me the choice. No. His honesty hurt more than an excuse would have. I was a coward. Isolde stared at him. Vela released her wrist and turned away. She could have left then. She should have. Instead, she reached for the back of his shirt. He stopped. Do not walk away from me again. The words were barely a whisper. Vela looked over his shoulder. I am trying to protect you. Then stand beside me. I cannot. You mean you will not? He turned. The movement brought them together so quickly that her hand pressed against his chest. His heart did not beat beneath her palm. The reminder of what he was should have frightened her. It did not. Vela looked down at her hand. Your husband has already betrayed you, he said. Do not betray yourself because of him. This is not because of him. Then tell me why you came. To learn who wants me dead. That is not the whole reason. No. His eyes lifted to hers. Tell me. Isolde's courage wavered. She could hear the voice of every person who had taught her what a proper wife should be. Silent, patient, forgiving. She was tired of all three. I came because you were the only person who saw what was happening and cared enough to come back. Vela's expression softened. Only slightly. It was enough. He lifted his hand and brushed his knuckles along her cheek. The touch was careful, almost reverent. Isolde closed her eyes. I should take you home, he whispered. Yes. Neither moved. His thumb traced the line of her jaw. You should step away. Yes. She remained where she was. Vela lowered his forehead to hers. His breath touched her lips. If I kiss you, he said, I will not pretend it meant nothing. Neither will I. You may regret it by morning. I regret far more than a kiss. His hand slid to the back of her neck. Still he waited. Isolde opened her eyes. Vela. That was all it took. His mouth met hers. The first kiss was restrained, soft enough to feel like a question. Isolde answered by gripping the front of his shirt and pulling him closer. Something in Vela gave way. His arm closed around her waist, drawing her against him as the kiss deepened. Years of silence, anger, and longing rushed into the space between them. He kissed her slowly at first, as though relearning her. Then, with more hunger, Isolde felt the sharp edge of one fang against her lower lip. Vela pulled back immediately. His eyes were fully red now. Did I hurt you? No. He searched her face. You are trembling. So are you. I do not tremble. You are now. For the first time, a faint smile touched his mouth. It disappeared when she kissed him again. This time, Isolde made the choice. Her hands moved to his shoulders, and Vela's restraint weakened beneath her touch. He pressed her gently against the stone wall, one hand braced beside her head, the other at her waist. His mouth moved from hers to her cheek, then to the delicate place beneath her ear. Isolde inhaled sharply. Vela stopped. Tell me. Don't stop. His lips brushed her neck. Not biting. Not yet. The danger of it made her pulse race. He could hear it. She knew he could. His fingers tightened slightly at her waist. Your blood is louder when you want me, he murmured. Heat rose through her. You should not say things like that. You asked me to stop lying. His mouth returned to hers. The kiss was deeper now, less careful, and for several breathless moments Isolde forgot the ruined chapel, the death threat, and the ring on her finger. Then Vela's hand brushed that ring. He froze. The moment shattered. He stepped back. Isolde's lips still tingled. Vela. No. His voice was strained. You said you would not pretend it meant nothing. It meant too much. He turned away, running a hand through his hair. Isolde straightened her cloak. Guilt arrived slowly. Not because Garin deserved loyalty. Because she had crossed a line she could never uncross. Vela faced her again. You must return before dawn. And the threat. I will investigate Garin's debt. You said you were not my ally. I lied. She almost smiled. Yes, poorly. He moved closer, but this time he did not touch her. Until I know who sent the letter, you cannot be alone. Garin will notice if I suddenly hire guards. Then I will remain close. How close? His gaze lingered on her mouth. Close enough. Isolde looked down at her wedding ring. What happens if my husband discovers you? Vela's face became cold. He will regret it. That is not an answer. It is the only one I have. A branch broke outside. Vela's head snapped toward the door. His entire body changed. The tenderness vanished. The predator remained. He extinguished the nearest candle with a sweep of his hand. Stay behind me. A shadow moved past the broken window. Then another. Vela drew a narrow blade from inside his boot. Isolde's heart began to race. How many? 3. Human. No. The chapel door burst inward. A pale man entered first, his mouth stained red. 2 others followed. Their eyes settled on Isolde. The first one smiled. So, he said, Garin's wife has found herself a vampire. Vela stepped in front of her. His voice became deadly calm. She is under my protection. The stranger laughed. That may be the problem. Then he lunged. The first vampire struck before Isolde could scream. Vela met him halfway across the chapel. Steel flashed beneath the moonlight. The attacker twisted aside, faster than any human could have moved, but Vela caught him by the throat and drove him into a stone pillar hard enough to crack it. The other 2 came at once. One vaulted over a broken pew, the second circled toward Isolde. Vela saw both. Stay behind the altar, he ordered. Isolde did not argue. She lifted her skirts and ran. A hand closed around the back of her cloak before she reached safety. The fabric tightened against her throat. She was pulled backward into a cold body. Garin's wife, a voice whispered beside her ear, worth more alive than dead, perhaps. Isolde drove her elbow behind her. Pain shot through her arm. The vampire barely moved. He laughed. Then his grip vanished. Vela tore him away from her and threw him across the chapel. The vampire crashed through a rotting pew. Vela stood between them, blade in one hand, his face transformed by fury. His eyes burned red. His fangs were visible now. Isolde had seen glimpses before, brief flashes when his control weakened. Never like this. There was nothing gentle in him. Nothing human. And still she felt safer with him than she had ever felt beside her husband. The first attacker pushed himself away from the broken pillar. You cannot protect her forever, Draven. Vela wiped blood from the corner of his mouth. I only need to protect her until you are dead. The vampire smiled. You still speak like a nobleman. And you still smell like a grave. He attacked. This time there was no warning. Vela moved so quickly that Isolde saw only fragments. A blade turning, a shoulder striking stone, black fabric cutting through silver light. The third vampire rose from the shattered pew and looked toward her. He did not try to reach her again. Instead, he pulled something from beneath his coat. A small glass vial. Vela saw it. No. The vampire threw it. The vial struck the floor near Isolde's feet and shattered. A sharp metallic scent filled the chapel. Blood. Not human blood. It was darker, almost black, spreading across the pale stone in thick lines. The effect on Vela was immediate. He staggered. The attacker drove a knife into his side. Vela. Isolde ran toward him. Stay back. His voice broke into a snarl. The spilled blood seemed to draw every vampire's attention. Even the attackers looked strained now, but they had expected it. Vela had not. One of them seized his arm, another struck him across the face. He fell to one knee. Isolde saw the blade still buried beneath his ribs. Fear burned through her. She looked around wildly. The altar. The candles. The iron cross hanging crookedly from the stone wall. She grabbed the heavy candlestick from the altar and swung it at the nearest vampire. The iron struck his temple. He turned toward her slowly. That had been a mistake. His smile widened. You should not have done that. He came for her. Isolde raised the candlestick again, though her hands shook. Before he reached her, Vela pulled the knife from his own side and buried it in the attacker's chest. The vampire froze. Vela twisted the blade. Dark veins spread beneath the attacker's skin. He collapsed. The remaining two stared at the body. Silver, one hissed. Vela rose unsteadily. Did you imagine I came unprepared? Blood soaked the side of his shirt. Too much of it. Isolde could not tell how badly he was hurt, but his movements had slowed. The first vampire backed toward the door. This changes nothing. It changes your number, Vela said. The vampire glanced at Isolde. Then he smiled. Ask her husband where the debt began. Both attackers fled into the forest. Vela started after them. His knees gave way. Isolde caught him before he struck the floor. He was heavier than she expected, cold, solid and trembling with the effort to remain conscious. She lowered him against the altar. Let me see. It will heal. That is not what I asked. She tore open the side of his shirt. The wound beneath his ribs was deep. Dark blood ran over his pale skin. Her stomach tightened. Why is it not closing? The knife was coated. With what? Something meant to slow healing. He looked toward the broken vial. And the blood. Old blood preserved, it weakens control. Whose blood? Vela did not answer. His breathing had changed. He watched her with a hunger so intense it made her pulse jump. Isolde followed his gaze. He was looking at her throat. She understood. You need blood. No. You can barely stand. I said no. You may die. I will not. You do not know that. He reached for his coat, but his hand missed it. Isolde knelt in front of him. Vela, do not come closer. You protected me. That does not give you permission to risk yourself. I am giving permission. His eyes closed. You do not understand what you are offering. Then explain it. He gripped the edge of the altar. If I feed while weakened, I may take too much. Will you stop if I tell you to? His eyes opened. Yes. Then I trust you. That is foolish. Probably. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he turned his face away. I cannot. Isolde felt a flash of anger. Why? Because I can already taste you. Her breath caught. Vela's voice dropped. I tasted you when I kissed you, one drop from your lip, and it has been burning through me ever since. Heat moved through her despite the danger. You stopped. Barely. You will stop again. You are too certain. No, she moved closer. I am choosing to believe you. He looked at her then. The fury had left his face. What remained was fear. Not fear of dying. Fear of hurting her. Isolde loosened the ribbon at the throat of her gown. Vela watched her fingers. Isolde, you need strength. Your wrist would be safer. She paused. Then take my wrist. She held it out. Vela's hand closed around hers. His grip was gentle even now. He turned her arm and pressed his mouth against the inside of her wrist. The touch was almost tender. His lips remained there without biting. Isolde felt his breath against her skin. You may still leave, he whispered. I am not leaving. His fangs pierced her. Pain came first. Sharp, quick. Then warmth. It moved through her arm and spread across her chest, strange and dizzying. Vela's hand tightened around her wrist. His eyes closed. He drank slowly. Carefully. The wound in his side began to close. Isolde watched his face. The tension eased from his brow, colour returned faintly beneath his skin. But the longer he fed, the more the feeling changed. The pain faded. Something softer took its place. A pull. An intimacy deeper than the kiss had been, as though every hidden feeling between them had been stripped bare. Vela opened his eyes. They met hers. He stopped drinking. But he did not release her. For one suspended moment, his lips remained against her wrist. Then he drew back. A small line of blood touched his mouth. Isolde reached toward him before she could reconsider. Her thumb brushed it away. Vela went perfectly still. You should not do that, he said. Why? His gaze dropped to her mouth. You know why. The danger between them returned, different now. Quieter. More intense. He lifted her hand and pressed his lips over the bite marks. The wounds closed beneath his touch. Isolde's breathing became uneven. Are you stronger? She asked. Yes. Strong enough to walk. Yes. Neither moved. Vela's hand slid from her wrist to her palm, their fingers slowly intertwining. You gave me your blood, he said. You gave me your life twice tonight. That is not the same. No, it is worse. A faint, tired smile crossed his face. You always were difficult. You always liked that. I loved that. The correction silenced her. Vela seemed to realize what he had admitted. He looked away. Isolde touched his face. You said it again. I should not have. But you meant it. Yes. She leaned closer. This kiss was different from the first. There was no anger behind it. No challenge. She kissed him because she had nearly lost him, and because pretending had become more painful than guilt. Vela's hand rose to the back of her neck. He kissed her carefully, though the hunger remained beneath the restraint. Isolde shifted closer between his knees. His other hand settled at her waist. The ruined chapel disappeared around them. For several moments there was only the warmth of his mouth, the cold of his fingers, and the strange awareness that her blood now moved through him. Vela broke the kiss first. He rested his forehead against hers. We cannot do this again. Isolde was still breathless. You said that after the first kiss. And I was correct. You kissed me again. You kissed me. You did not resist. I was injured. She almost laughed. That is a terrible excuse. It is the best I have. The sound of distant hoofbeats ended the moment. Vela stood. This time his wound had nearly closed. He pulled his torn shirt together and retrieved his coat. Riders. Garen's men. Likely. How would they know where I am? Vela's expression hardened. Someone followed you after all. He moved toward the chapel door, listening. There are 6. Can we escape? Yes. He held out his hand. Isolde looked at it. Then at the ring on her own finger. For a brief moment she saw the choice clearly. Return to Garen and pretend nothing had happened. Or step deeper into something dangerous enough to destroy every part of her old life. She placed her hand in Vela's. He led her through a narrow passage behind the altar, half hidden by hanging vines. They emerged in the cemetery behind the chapel. The forest waited beyond the grave. Vela drew her close beneath his coat as they moved between the stones. Where are we going? To a place Garen does not know exists. Your home. His body tensed slightly. No human has entered my home in 80 years. Then tonight will be memorable. He glanced down at her. You should not sound pleased. I have had a difficult evening. That is your defense. It is the best I have. Despite himself, Vela smiled. Then the expression vanished. A rider appeared on the hill above the cemetery. Torchlight illuminated his face. Garen's. Isolde stopped. Her husband looked down at them. At Vela's arm around her. At the blood on Vela's shirt. At the loosened ribbon at Isolde's throat. The silence was absolute. Garen dismounted slowly. His gaze fixed on their joined hands. Isolde, he said. Her name sounded different now. Not dismissive. Possessive. Come here. Vela moved slightly in front of her. Garen's eyes shifted to him. You know me, Vela asked. Garen drew his sword. I know exactly what you are. Isolde stepped forward. Garen, there were vampires in the chapel. They attacked us. And you expect me to believe you came here for protection? His gaze moved over her face. Then to her mouth. Understanding sharpened his expression. What did you do? Isolde felt the old instinct rise. Apologize. Explain. Make peace. She crushed it. What you have done throughout our entire marriage, she said. Garen's face changed. Vela looked at her, but she did not look away from her husband. Garen walked closer. You will come home now. No. The word surprised all 3 of them. Garen stopped. What did you say? Isolde removed her wedding ring. For 2 years it had felt impossible to take off. Now it slid free easily. She held it in her palm. I said no. Garen's eyes burned with humiliation. You are my wife. You remembered that very suddenly. He reached for her. Vela caught his wrist. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Garen looked at the vampire's hand on him. Then he smiled without humor. Take your hand off me. Vela's voice was calm. Do not reach for her again. Garen pulled free. This is not finished. No, Isolde said. Vela did not wait for Garen to make the next move. He took Isolde's hand and led her into the forest. Behind them, Garen shouted her name. She did not turn around. Branches caught at her cloak as they moved through the trees. Vela walked quickly but never pulled hard enough to hurt her. He seemed to know every route and hidden path beneath the darkness. The chapel bells began ringing behind them. There had been no priest in that chapel for years. Still the bells rang. Once, twice, then again. Isolde looked back. Torchlight moved between the grave. Are they following us? Yes. Garen's men. And something else. Vela stopped suddenly. He listened. Isolde heard only the wind and the distant bells. What is it? The vampires from the chapel are calling others. Her stomach tightened. How many? I do not know. That answer frightened her more than a number would have. Vela lifted her into his arms before she could protest. What are you doing? You are slowing us down. I am wearing a formal gown in a forest. I noticed. Despite the danger, heat rose to her face. His arm held firmly beneath her knees while the other supported her back. She could feel the strength in him, restored by her blood. Put me down. No. I can walk. You can argue while I carry you. He moved faster. The trees blurred around them. Isolde pressed one hand against his shoulder and the other around his neck. Every step felt unnaturally smooth, as if the forest itself opened for him. After several minutes, the bells faded. Vela slowed near a narrow stream. A stone bridge appeared through the fog. Beyond it stood iron gates covered in ivy. They opened before he touched them. Isolde looked past the gates. A manor rose from the hillside. It was smaller than Garen's estate but far older. Tall windows glowed with warm candlelight. Dark roses climbed the pale stone walls, and narrow towers reached above the trees. The house did not feel abandoned. It felt asleep. You live here? She asked. Vela carried her across the bridge. I exist here. That sounds miserable. It was quieter before you arrived. She looked at him. That almost sounded like humor. It was not. The corner of his mouth lifted. The front doors opened. A woman stood inside. She appeared human at first, middle-aged, silver-haired and dressed in a dark green gown. Then Isolde saw her eyes. Gold. Not red like Vela's. The woman studied Isolde in silence. Master Vela, she said at last, you brought someone home. Yes, mild. A human. Yes. A married human. Vela's jaw tightened. Yes. Mile looked at the blood on his clothing. Then at Isolde's loosened cloak and bare ring finger. I see. Isolde was suddenly aware of how the situation appeared. It is not. Mile held up one hand. I have lived for 216 years. Please do not insult me with the words, it is not what it looks like. Vela set Isolde carefully on her feet. She needs protection. And you need a new shirt. I am fine. You are leaking on the floor. Vela looked down at the remaining blood on his side. Mile sighed. The blue room is prepared. Vela frowned. Why? Because you have been standing near the eastern windows for 3 nights watching her husband's estate. Isolde turned toward him. Vela looked irritated. Mile continued. You were either going to bring her here or get yourself killed trying not to. She walked away before he could answer. Isolde stared at him. You watched my house from your windows. Part of it is visible from the North Tower. You said you watched for 3 nights. I did. You neglected to mention that you stood at a window like a tragic ghost. I was observing a threat. You were brooding. I do not brood. Mile disagrees. Vela stepped closer. So does your husband. The warmth vanished from her expression. He regretted the words immediately. I should not have said that. No. He lifted his hand toward her, then stopped. Isolde noticed. His restraint again. Always his restraint. Even after the chapel. Even after her blood. You may touch me, she said quietly. Vela looked toward the hallway. You are frightened. I am angry. You can be both. I do not want to be alone. That was the truth beneath everything else. The attack. Garen. The ring in the graveyard. She had made a choice in front of her husband, but the courage of that moment was beginning to fade. Vela's expression softened. He touched her cheek. You are safe here. For how long? I do not know. Another comforting answer. It is the honest one. Isolde closed her eyes and leaned into his hand. I have nowhere to go. Your family. Garin pays their debts. If I arrive at their door after leaving him, they will send me back. Vela's thumb moved gently beneath her eye. Then you will stay here. She opened her eyes. You say that as if it is simple. It is simple for me. It will not be simple when Garin comes. He will not cross the gates. And if he sends soldiers, they will not cross either. Why? Vela glanced toward the high windows. Because this house remembers how to defend itself. A low sound moved through the walls. Almost like a breath. Isolde looked around. The house is alive. Not exactly. That is not reassuring. It was not meant to be. Mile returned carrying folded clothing. She handed it to Isolde. The blue room is upstairs. There is hot water and food. Thank you. Mile's gold eyes moved between her and Vela. Do not thank me yet. Then she turned to Vela. You need to speak with the council. No. They will learn she is here. Then they can learn from someone else. They will consider her a political threat. She is under my protection. That is precisely why. Vela's expression hardened. What does that mean? Isolde asked. Mile looked at her directly. Vela has not protected a human openly in more than a century. Isolde felt him become still beside her. Why not? That is not my story to tell. Mile walked away again. Isolde waited until she disappeared around the corner. What happened a century ago? Vela said nothing. Vela, not tonight. You ask me to trust you while hiding half your life. I have lived too long to explain half of it in one evening. Then explain the part that could get me killed. His gaze shifted toward her. You are already in danger because of Garin's debt. And because of you. Silence answered. Isolde stepped away from his hand. I see. No, you do not. Then help me understand. Vela looked exhausted now. Not physically. Older than his face. There are vampires who believe humans should never be protected at the expense of our own kind, he said. If they believe I have chosen you over them, they may come for you simply to punish me. Have you chosen me? The question came too quickly. Vela stared at her. Isolde could not take it back. His voice lowered. I chose you the moment I returned to your house. Her heart tightened. Then why do you keep pretending otherwise? Because you are still married. You keep saying that as though Garin's ring has power over my heart. It has power over your life. Only if I let it. You do not understand what leaving him will cost. I understand perfectly. No, Vela moved closer. You understand tonight, you understand anger and humiliation. Tomorrow you will understand exile, scandal, your family turning against you, your name becoming something people whisper. And you think I should return. His face tightened. I think you should know what you are choosing. I am choosing not to be treated like property. That is not the same as choosing me. The words hurt because they were true. Isolde looked away. Perhaps I am not ready to choose you. Vela's expression became unreadable. But I am no longer choosing him. That mattered. She needed him to understand that. Vela stepped closer until only a breath separated them. What happened in the chapel cannot happen again because you are hurt. It did not happen because I was hurt. Then why? Isolde looked into his eyes. Because I wanted you. His control shifted. She saw it in the tension of his jaw, the slight lowering of his gaze. "Say it again," he whispered. "I wanted you." His hand closed around her waist. Not roughly, but with certainty. Isolde's pulse quickened. Vela leaned toward her, then stopped before their mouths touched. "You are tired." "I am." "You have lost blood." "A little." "You should rest." "Yes." Neither moved. His thumb pressed against the fabric at her waist. "You are making this difficult." "You were difficult first. I left you alone for 2 years." "Exactly." A faint sound escaped him. Almost a laugh. Then Isolde kissed him. Vela responded immediately. His hand moved to the back of her neck while his other arm drew her closer. The kiss was deeper than the ones in the chapel, free from immediate danger and therefore somehow more dangerous. There was time now. Time to feel every hesitation disappear. Time to feel the careful pressure of his mouth, the cold strength of his body, and the hunger he kept under control for her. Isolde slid her hands beneath his coat. His muscles tightened beneath her palms. Vela broke the kiss and looked down at her. "Do not do that unless you are certain." "I am certain I want to touch you." "That is not what I asked." She understood. The next step, the one neither of them could pretend, was only a kiss. Isolde's courage faltered. Vela saw it. He released her immediately. The loss of his warmth, his strange, cold warmth, felt abrupt. "I will take you to your room," he said. She caught his hand. "Are you angry?" "No." "Disappointed?" His expression softened. "No." "Then why did you move away?" "Because hesitation is an answer." The simplicity of it struck her. Garin had never waited for her certainty. He barely noticed her discomfort. Vela noticed everything. Isolde lifted his hand and pressed it to her cheek. "I do want you. But not tonight. Not because I regret kissing you. I know. Not because I love Garin. I know. I need time to understand what happens next. You may have all the time you need." Her eyes burned unexpectedly. Vela brushed his thumb beneath one of them. "Do not cry." "I am not." "You are." "I have had a difficult evening." That excuse again. It remains useful. He kissed her forehead. The tenderness of it nearly broke her more than passion had. Vela led her upstairs. The blue room was warm, lit by a fire. A deep copper bath stood behind a folding screen. Food waited on a small table along with a fresh gown. At the door, Isolde turned to him. "Will you stay nearby?" "Yes." "How nearby?" "The room across the hall." "Will the door be opened?" "If you wish." She studied him. "You really intend to wait?" "For what?" "For me to decide." Vela's eyes held hers. "I waited 2 years while you belonged to another man." His voice was quiet. "I can wait 1 more night while you remember you belong to yourself." He stepped away. Isolde watched him cross the hall. Before entering his room, he looked back. "Lock your door." "From you." "From everyone." She closed it. But she did not lock it. Much later, after bathing and changing, Isolde lay awake beneath unfamiliar blankets. She heard movement in the corridor. Then silence. She rose and opened the door. Vela sat on the floor across from her room, his back against the wall. His eyes were closed. A sword rested across his knees. "You said you would be in the room across the hall." He opened his eyes. "I changed my mind." "You are guarding my door." "Yes." "From what?" "Everything." Isolde looked at him for a long moment. Then she sat beside him. Vela turned toward her. You should be asleep. So should you. I do not sleep often. Then keep me company. She rested her head against his shoulder. He became still. Slowly his arm moved around her. Neither spoke. For the first time that night, Isolde felt the fear inside her begin to quiet. Then someone struck the iron gates below. Once, hard enough to shake the windows. A man's voice carried through the house. Isolde. Garen's. Vela's arm tightened around her. Another blow struck the gates. Her husband shouted again. Open these gates, or I will burn this place to the ground. Vela rose, sword already in his hand. Isolde stood beside him. What will you do? His eyes turned red. Give your husband the opportunity to leave alive. Garen struck the gates again. The iron bars shuddered, but they did not open. From the upper landing, Isolde could see torchlight burning through the tall windows. Garen had brought 6 armed men, all wearing his colours. Vela descended the staircase without hurry. That frightened her more than anger would have. Mile appeared at the end of the hall. Do not kill him on the front steps, she said. Vela kept walking. I made no promise. Blood stains the stone. Garen's voice thundered from outside. Isolde, I know you can hear me. Vela reached the doors. Isolde followed. He looked back immediately. Stay inside. No. Your husband is armed. So are you. He is angry. So am I. Vela studied her face, then gave up arguing. Miles sighed behind them. Wonderful, a married dispute involving swords and vampires, just what the house needed. Vela opened the doors. Cold air swept into the hall. Garen stood beyond the gates, his sword drawn. His men waited behind him with crossbows and silver-tipped bolts. The sight made Vela stop. Silver, Isolde whispered. They came prepared, he said. Garen saw her beside him. His expression hardened. Open the gates. No, Isolde answered. I was not speaking to you. Vela's gaze turned colder. That is your first mistake. Garen laughed once. You think hiding in a cursed house makes you untouchable. No, Vela said, experience does. One of Garen's soldiers raised his crossbow. The ivy along the gates shifted. It tightened around the weapon and ripped it from his hands. The man stumbled backward. Garen looked at the moving vines. For the first time, doubt crossed his face. This house belongs to my family's land, he said. Vela stepped outside. Your family's maps lie. Garen moved closer to the gates. My wife is inside. Isolde is inside, Vela corrected. Garen's mouth tightened. You speak her name too easily. And you speak of her as though she were furniture. Isolde descended the front steps until she stood beside Vela. Garen's gaze dropped to her clothing. She still wore the gown Mile had given her. Dark blue, soft at the throat, nothing like the formal dress she had left the estate in. His eyes sharpened. You changed. My gown was torn. At his house. At the chapel. Do you expect me to believe that nothing happened between you? Isolde looked at him. No. The honesty struck him silent. Vela glanced at her, but she kept her attention on Garen. Her husband's face changed slowly. From anger to disbelief. You admit it. I kissed him. One of the soldiers looked away. Another stared. Garen's humiliation became almost physical. He gripped his sword tighter. You shame me in front of my own men. You brought them. You are my wife. And you have spent 2 years behaving as though that title only matters when it benefits you. Garen stepped toward the gates. You will come home. No. His voice lowered. Your family will lose everything. The threat landed exactly where he intended. Isolde felt it. Her parents' estate. Her sisters. The servants who depended on their household. Garin saw her hesitation and smiled. There she is, he said, the sensible woman I married. Vela turned toward her. He did not tell her what to do. That made it harder. Garin continued. Return tonight and I will overlook this. Isolde stared at him. You will overlook it. I understand you were upset. A cold laugh escaped her. You understand nothing. I understand that you wanted to punish me. This is not punishment. Then what is it? She looked at Vela. The moonlight caught the pale line of his face. His expression revealed nothing, but his hand was clenched at his side. Isolde turned back to her husband. It is the first honest choice I have made in years. Garin's composure broke. He drove his sword through the bars. Vela pulled Isolde backward as the blade passed inches from her. The gates reacted. Iron vines twisted around Garin's sword and tore it from his grip. The weapon snapped in half. His men raised their crossbows. Vela moved in front of Isolde. Do not, he warned. Garin lifted one hand. The soldiers held. For several seconds, no one moved. Then Garin smiled. It was not the careless, arrogant smile she knew. This one was colder. You think he loves you. Isolde said nothing. He left you once. Vela's face tightened. Garin saw it. He will leave again. That is between Vela and me. No, Garin said, everything you do belongs to me. Vela crossed the distance to the gates. The iron bars separated them by less than a foot. If you say that again, he said, the gates will be the only reason you survive. Garin looked directly into his eyes. You cannot keep her. Vela's voice became very quiet. I am not keeping her. Garin laughed. No, then open the gates and let her choose. Silence fell. Isolde felt every eye turn toward her. Vela stepped back. Then he raised his hand. The gates opened. Miles swore softly behind them. Garin looked surprised. Vela turned to Isolde. You may go with him. The words struck harder than they should have. Garin smiled. Vela continued. Or you may stay. Isolde stared at him. You would let me leave. His expression did not change. I will not replace one prison with another. The night seemed to narrow around them. Garin extended his hand. Come home. Vela said nothing. He did not reach for her. He did not ask. He waited. Isolde looked at her husband's open hand. She remembered the ballroom. The widow against the wall. His calm certainty that she would do nothing. Then she looked at Vela. At the man who had protected her, warned her, kissed her, and stepped away the instant she hesitated. Her choice became clear. Isolde walked forward. Garin's smile widened. Then she passed him. She stopped beside his horse and looked at the soldiers. Which of you delivered the letter sealed with a serpent and a crown? No one answered. Garin's face changed. What letter? Isolde watched him carefully. You do not know. Know what? Vela stepped closer. The debt collectors sent a warning. Garin looked from him to Isolde. For the first time his confusion seemed real. What warning? Blood will settle the debt, Isolde said. Garin went pale. That was answer enough. You do know, she whispered. No. You are lying. I knew there was a debt. I did not know they had moved against you. Vela crossed through the open gates. Who did you borrow from? Garen looked at him with hatred. That is not your concern. They attacked her. She is my wife. Vela moved so quickly that Garen barely reacted before he was pinned against the gate. Vela's hand closed around his throat. Then answer as though her life matters. Garen's soldiers raised their crossbows again. Isolde stepped between them and Vela. Lower your weapons. They hesitated. She lifted her chin. I am still the lady of your house. One by one the weapons lowered. Garen's eyes burned. Vela released him. He coughed and straightened his coat. The money came from House Saren, he said. Mile appeared in the doorway. Her expression changed immediately. House Saren was destroyed. Garen looked at her. Not all of it. Vela's face became still. Who survived? Garen said nothing. Vela stepped toward him again. Who's? A woman named Coldris. The name changed the air. Vela did not move. Mile whispered, that is impossible. Isolde looked between them. Who is she? Neither answered. Garen smiled when he saw Vela's reaction. You know her. Vela's gaze remained fixed on nothing. Yes. How? Miles spoke before he could. She is the reason Vela stopped protecting humans. Isolde felt cold. Vela looked at Miles sharply. But the truth was already there. Garen studied Isolde with renewed interest. You brought my wife into a war you began a century ago. Vela's expression hardened. This has nothing to do with her. Garen laughed. It does now. A bolt flew from the trees. Vela heard it first. He turned and pulled Isolde down. The silver-tipped bolt struck Garen in the shoulder. He screamed. Chaos erupted. More bolts flew from the darkness. One of the soldiers fell. Then another. Figures moved between the trees. Pale faces. Red eyes. At least 10. Miles shouted from the doorway. Inside. Vela lifted Isolde to her feet. Garen collapsed near the gates, clutching the bolt in his shoulder. Vela looked at him. For one brutal second, Isolde saw the choice. Leave him. Let the attackers finish what they had begun. Garen saw it too. Vela, Isolde said. He looked at her. She hated what she was about to ask. Save him. Vela's jaw tightened. He would not save you. I know. Another bolt struck the gate beside them. Isolde held his gaze. But I will not become him. Vela closed his eyes briefly. Then he grabbed Garen and threw him over one shoulder. Inside, he ordered. They ran toward the house as the gates slammed shut behind them. Vines twisted across the iron. The attackers struck the barrier. The entire manor trembled. Inside, Vela dropped Garen onto a long table. Mile tore open his coat and examined the silver bolt. It is barbed. Garen's face had gone grey. Remove it. If I pull it out incorrectly, you will bleed to death. Then do it correctly. Mile looked at Vela. You will need to hold him. Vela gave a humorless smile. With pleasure. Isolde moved closer to Garen. His eyes found hers. You asked him to save me. Yes. Why? Because I am not you. Pain crossed his face. For once it had nothing to do with the wound. Mile broke the shaft of the bolt. Garen cried out. Vela held him down. Outside, something struck the gates again. The glass in the windows shook. Mile pulled the silver tip free. Blood poured across the table. Vela stared at it. His eyes changed. Isolde saw the hunger before he turned away. Garin saw it too. Even wounded, he smiled. "Careful, Isolde," he whispered. "Your protector is still a monster." Vela's hands curled into fists. Isolde took a cloth from Mile and pressed it over Garin's wound. Then she looked at Vela. "No," she said quietly, "he is the man who saved you." A woman's voice echoed from beyond the gates. "Elegant, calm, old, Vela Draven." Everyone in the hall froze. The candles dimmed. The voice came again. "You took one woman from me long ago." Vela's face emptied of all emotion. The doors shook in their frame. Coldris laughed from the darkness. "Now I have come for the one you love." Coldris stood beyond the iron bars as though the night belonged to her. She wore no armor, no cloak, only a long black gown that moved softly around her feet while the wind pulled at her silver hair. Behind her, the other vampires waited among the trees. None of them stepped ahead of her. Inside the hall, Vela stood motionless. Isolde watched his face. The anger was there, but beneath it something worse. Recognition. Memory. Garin, pale from blood loss, pushed himself upright against the table. "That is Coldris." Mile pressed the cloth harder against his shoulder. "Be quiet." Coldris smiled through the windows. "You have not changed, Vela." His voice was cold. "You have. Cruel. You were always cruel." "No," she lifted one hand and rested it against the gate. "I became cruel after you betrayed me." Isolde looked at him. Vela did not look back. Coldris noticed. Her smile deepened. "So that is her." Vela stepped in front of Isolde. "Leave. I have crossed half the kingdom for this meeting. You should have stayed buried." Coldris laughed softly. "I tried." The iron vines around the gates tightened. She touched them. They recoiled from her hand. Mile drew a sharp breath. "The house recognizes her." Vela's expression darkened. "Not anymore." Coldris walked through the gates. Not opened them. Through them. Her body became shadow for one impossible second, then solid again on the other side. The men behind her remained outside. She approached the manor alone. Vela drew his blade. Isolde touched his arm. "Who is she?" Coldris answered from the steps. "I was his wife." The room went silent. Isolde's hand fell away. Vela closed his eyes briefly. "Do not call yourself that." "Why?" Coldris asked. "Because you never loved me." Vela said nothing. That was answer enough. Coldris entered the house. The candles nearest her went out. Her gaze moved over Isolde slowly, taking in her dress her bare finger, the faint mark still visible at her wrist. "You fed from her." Vela moved closer. "Do not speak to her." Coldris ignored him. "Did he tell you what happens when he drinks from someone he loves?" Isolde felt Vela go still. "No," she said. Coldris's eyes gleamed. "Of course not." Coldris, Mile warned. She glanced toward the older woman. "You are still here." "Unfortunately." Coldris smiled. "Still cleaning his messes." "Only the interesting ones." Vela's patience broke. "What do you want?" Coldris looked at him. "At last." She walked to the center of the hall. "Garin owes me." Garin clenched his jaw. "You were paid." "With borrowed gold stolen from my house." "I was told the account was settled." "You were told what made you useful." Garin glanced toward Isolde. Coldris saw that too. "Your marriage gave you access to her family's bloodline." Isolde frowned. My bloodlines. Vela turned sharply. Coldris looked delighted. You did not know. Know what? Isolde demanded. Coldris stepped closer. Vela blocked her paths. She stopped inches from him. Her mother descended from the old northern line, Coldris said, the family that sealed House Sarin beneath the mountain. Miles' expression changed. That line ended. No, it hid. Isolde looked at Vela. What does that have to do with me? Coldris answered. Your blood can open the tomb. A cold silence settled over the room. Garin looked horrified. You said the marriage would protect the estate. It did, Coldris said, until I needed her. Isolde stared at her husband. You knew she wanted something from my family. I did not know what. But you knew. Garin looked away. That was enough. The betrayal felt different from the others. Not personal. Worse. He had traded her into danger without even asking what the price was. Coldris walked toward him. You were supposed to bring her to me willingly. Garin forced himself upright. She is my wife. Coldris laughed. You keep saying that as though it means anything. For once Isolde almost agreed with her. Vela raised his blade. You will not take her. Coldris looked back at him. You said that before. The pain in his face was brief. But Isolde saw it. What happened before? She asked. Vela said nothing. Coldris did. A century ago, he loved a human woman. Isolde's chest tightened. Coldris circled them slowly. She begged him to save her family. He brought them into our home, fed them, hid them. Vela's voice was low. They were being hunted. They were human. They were innocent. Coldris's expression sharpened. They killed my brother while he slept. Mile looked away. Vela's hand tightened around the sword. I did not know. No, Coldris said. You never do, you only love, then everyone else pays for it. Her gaze moved to Isolde. And now he has chosen another human woman. Isolde met her eyes. I did not ask him to choose me. No, you simply appeared wounded enough for him to repeat himself. The insult landed, but Isolde did not move. Vela did. He seized Coldris by the throat. The entire house shook. The vampires beyond the gate surged forward. Coldris smiled even in his grip. There he is. Leave her out of this. You already put her in it. Vela's fangs appeared. His eyes burned red. Isolde had never seen him so close to losing control. She stepped toward him. Vela. He did not respond. Coldris whispered, do it. His fingers tightened. Kill me in front of her. Vela. Still nothing. Isolde placed her hand against his back. He froze. She felt the tension in him. The fury. The old grief. Let her go, Isolde said. Coldris's eyes flickered toward her. Vela released her. She stumbled only once. Then straightened. You make him weak, she told Isolde. No, Isolde said. I remind him he has a choice. Coldris's expression hardened. Choices are a human luxury. So is blaming others for your cruelty. Mile made a quiet sound that might have been approval. Coldris turned fully toward Isolde. You think this is romance? No. You think he will love you forever. I do not know what forever means to him. That answer surprised Vela. Isolde continued. But I know what tonight means to me. She looked at Garin. My husband sold my safety for power. Then at Coldris. You want my blood for revenge. Finally at Vela. And he is the only person in this room who has asked what I want. Vela's expression shifted. The words reached him. Coldress's patience vanished. You want a choice. She moved faster than anyone expected. Her hand closed around Isolde's throat. Vela lunged. Coldress threw Isolde toward the doors. The front doors burst open. Cold air rushed in. The vampires outside moved at once. Two seized Isolde. She fought, but they dragged her toward the gates. Vela tore through the first attacker before he reached the steps. Mile drew a blade from beneath her gown and struck another. Garin tried to stand. He collapsed. Coldress caught Vela from behind. Her nails cut into his throat. You cannot save her and fight me. Vela drove his elbow backward. She held on. Isolde struggled against the hands gripping her. One vampire pulled her hair aside. Do not damage the blood, Coldress ordered. Rage moved through Isolde. She drove her heel down on the attacker's foot and threw her head backward into his face. His grip loosened. She twisted free. The second vampire caught her arm. Then Garin's broken sword flew past her shoulder. It struck the vampire in the chest. Isolde turned. Garin stood in the doorway, one hand pressed to his bleeding shoulder. Run, he said. She stared at him. Why? His face twisted with pain. Because for once I am trying not to be the worst man in the room. The vampire rose again. Garin stepped between them. He would lose. They both knew it. Isolde grabbed the fallen sword and drove the silver edge into the attacker's side. He screamed and collapsed. Across the courtyard, Vela broke free of Coldress. He reached Isolde in seconds. His hands closed around her face. Are you hurt? No. He searched her eyes. Are you certain? Yes. Only then did he breathe. Coldress stood near the open doors. Blood ran from one corner of her mouth. You cannot hide her, she said. Vela kept one hand against Isolde's cheek. I am not hiding her. Coldress smiled. Then bring her to the mountain. No. The tomb will open with or without her consent. Isolde stepped beside Vela. No, she said, it will not. Coldress looked amused. You do not understand your own blood. Then teach me. Vela turned sharply. Isolde. She looked at him. We cannot keep running. That does not mean walking into her trap. No, it means choosing the battlefield. Coldress studied her. For the first time, not dismissively. What do you propose? Isolde looked toward the paling sky beyond the trees. Dawn was approaching. You leave tonight. Coldress's expression cooled. And tomorrow. We meet at the mountain. Vela shook his head. No. Isolde kept her eyes on Coldress. You want the tomb opened. I want the debt ended. And him, Coldress asked. Isolde looked at Vela. His face was rigid with fear and anger. He comes with me. Coldress smiled slowly. Of course he does. She stepped backward into the mist. Her followers moved with her. At the gates she paused. Tomorrow night. Then she disappeared into the forest. The silence afterward felt unnatural. Vela turned to Isolde. You cannot do this. I already did. She will kill you. Then help me make certain she does not. His expression became furious. You believe one brave speech makes you prepared? No. Then why? Isolde stepped closer. Because she is right about one thing. What? You cannot keep saving me from choices I have not made. Vela stared at her. The anger remained. So did the fear. I love you, he said. The words came out harshly, almost like an accusation. Isolde's breath caught. Vela continued. I love you, and I cannot stand here while you offer yourself to her. She lifted her hand to his face. I am not offering myself. Then what are you doing? Fighting for my life. His eyes closed against her touch. And asking you to fight beside me. Vela covered her hand with his. For a long moment neither spoke. Then he lowered his forehead to hers. Tomorrow night, he whispered. Yes. If anything goes wrong. It will. His mouth almost smiled. You are impossible. You love me. His eyes opened. Yes. This time the answer held no fear. He kissed her slowly in the open courtyard, while Garen watched from the doorway. Not hidden. Not stolen. Chosen. And when Vela finally pulled away, he did not release her. Tomorrow, he said, we end this. By the following night, the first snow had begun to fall. It softened the road beneath the horses and covered the northern mountains in white. Above them, the moon hung pale behind thin clouds. Isolde rode between Vela and Mile. Garen followed several paces behind. His injured shoulder had been bound tightly, but pain showed in every movement. Vela had objected to bringing him. Isolde had insisted. Garen knew the terms of the debt. Leaving him behind would only allow him to hide another truth. No one spoke until the mountain path became too steep for horses. They continued on foot. Vela remained close to Isolde, one hand hovering near her back whenever the path narrowed. He had barely left her side since Coldress departed. But he had not kissed her again. The restraint bothered her more than she cared to admit. You are brooding, she said. I am thinking. Darkly. There is no cheerful way to consider entering an ancient vampire tomb. You could try. Vela looked at her. No. Mile walked ahead of them carrying a lantern. I once saw him smile for nearly an entire minute, she said. Vela frowned. You promised never to speak of it. Isolde almost laughed. The sound felt strange in such a place. But it eased something inside her. Then Garen spoke from behind them. You seem comfortable together. Isolde did not turn. You do not get to sound wounded. I am not. You have never been convincing when you lie. Garen fell silent. The path ended before a wall of black stone. There was no door. Only an ancient symbol carved into the mountain, a serpent wrapped around a crown. The same symbol from the letter. Coldress waited beneath it. Her followers formed a half-circle around the entrance. You came, she said. Isolde stopped several yards away. I said I would. Coldress's gaze moved to Garen. And you brought the debtor. Garen lifted his chin. You will release my estates when this is finished. Coldress smiled. Still bargaining. You made an agreement. I made several. Her eyes shifted toward Isolde. Most of them were not with you. Vela stepped forward. Open the tomb and take what you came for, then the debt ends. Coldress's expression turned almost gentle. You still believe this is about gold? What is inside? Isolde asked. Coldress looked at the symbol. My family. The wind grew colder. Mile raised the lantern. You said House Sarin was destroyed. It was imprisoned. Why? Isolde asked. Because your ancestors feared us. Coldress touched the stone. They sealed every member of my house inside this mountain and left them to starve. Isolde stared at the wall. How many? 37. The number settled heavily over them. Vela's voice became hard. They were not innocent. No, Coldris replied, they were vampires. That is not what I meant. My father led raids against human villages, my brothers followed him, my mother did nothing to stop them. Pain flickered behind her cold expression. But there were children inside. Isolde's chest tightened. Coldris looked at her. Your blood can free them. And then what? They live. Do they return to raiding villages? Coldris smiled faintly. You ask for guarantees from starving monsters. I ask because their freedom could cost hundreds of lives. Their prison already cost mine. Vela moved beside Isolde. You will not use her. Coldris's gaze sharpened. She came willingly. To end the debt, Isolde said, not to release an army. Garin stepped closer to the wall. What else is inside? Everyone turned toward him. His interest was too obvious. Coldris laughed. There it is. Isolde's stomach sank. What did you promise him? Coldris looked at Garin. Tell your wife. He said nothing. Vela seized his coat. What is inside? Garin pulled away. A crown. Miles' expression changed. The blood crown. Coldris nodded. Isolde looked between them. What does it do? Mile answered quietly. It compels loyalty from any vampire belonging to the wearer's bloodline. Garin stared at the stone. With that crown, House Saren would obey me. Isolde could hardly believe him. You intended to control them. I intended to protect our lands. You intended to own an army. To secure our future. There is no our future. His face hardened. You think this creature will give you one. Vela moved toward him. Isolde caught Vela's hand. No. Garin saw the gesture. Bitterness twisted his expression. You defend him even now. He has never sold me. Garin's mouth opened. No answer came. Coldris stepped toward Isolde. We have wasted enough time. She held out a silver knife. One cut across your palm, place your blood against the seal. Vela took the knife from her. No. Coldris's followers moved closer. Isolde looked at the stone. Then at Vela. What happens if we leave? Coldris continues hunting you, he said. Garin's debt remains and others may attempt to open the tomb. So we end it here. Not by freeing them. Perhaps there is another way. Coldris laughed softly. There is always another way in human stories. Isolde approached the symbol. Vela caught her wrist. Do not. She looked at him. Trust me. His grip tightened. I trust you, I do not trust what is behind that wall. Then stand beside me. For several seconds he did not move. Then he released her wrist and joined her. Isolde took the knife. She cut her palm. Vela's eyes darkened at the scent of blood, but he remained perfectly still. Her blood touched the carved serpent. The stone shuddered. Red light travelled through the symbol. Deep inside the mountain, something awakened. The sound was not a roar. It was 37 voices drawing breath at once. The wall split down the centre. A narrow opening appeared. Cold, rotten air rushed out. Coldris stepped forward eagerly. Isolde pressed her bleeding hand harder against the seal. Not yet. The opening stopped. Coldris turned. What are you doing? The tomb responds to my blood. Yes. Then I decide how far it opens. Coldris's face changed. Vela understood first. Isolde. She kept her palm against the stone. You want your family freed. Garin wants the crown. I want the debt destroyed. Garin stepped forward. The crown belongs to me. It never belonged to you. You are still my wife under the law. Isolde looked back at him. Then hear your wife clearly. She pulled her hand from the seal. The stone began closing. Coldris screamed. No. She lunged. Vela intercepted her. They struck the ground together. Coldris's followers rushed forward. Mile drew 2 blades. Garin ran toward the narrowing entrance. Not toward Isolde. Toward the crown. He forced himself through the gap before the stone closed. Garin, Isolde shouted. His fingers caught the edge. The wall stopped inches from crushing him. From inside the darkness came whispering. Hungry. Excited. Garin disappeared into the tomb. Coldris threw Vela aside and ran after him. Isolde pressed her palm against the seal again. The opening widened just enough for Coldris to enter. Then Isolde removed her hand. The mountain sealed. Silence fell. Coldris and Garin were trapped inside. Mile stared at the wall. You sealed them together. Isolde looked at the blood on her palm. They both wanted what was inside. A muffled scream came from beyond the stone. Garin S. Then nothing. Vela approached Isolde. His face was pale with concern. Are you hurt? No. You are bleeding. So are you. A cut crossed his cheek. Isolde lifted her hand, then stopped when she saw the blood on her fingers. Vela took her wrist gently. He kissed the center of her palm. The wound closed beneath his lips. Mile turned away with exaggerated patience. I will examine the seal. She walked several paces down the path. Isolde looked at the mountain. Are they dead? Not yet, Vela said. Will Coldris survive? Possibly. And Garin? His expression revealed the answer. Isolde closed her eyes. She had not loved Garin. Not for a long time. But grief came anyway. Not for the man he had been. For the man he might have become if power had not mattered more than people. Vela touched her cheek. You tried to save him. I asked you to save him. And he used that life to betray you again. Her eyes opened. I should feel relieved. You are allowed to feel more than one thing. She leaned into his hand. What happens now? The debt ends with Garin. And the tomb. Your bloodline remains the only key. So others will come. Perhaps. Isolde looked toward the path home. I cannot return to my old life. No. My family may reject me. Yes. My name will become a scandal. Almost certainly. She gave him a tired look. You are very poor at comfort. I warned you. A faint smile touched her mouth. Vela stepped closer. You can stay at my house for as long as you choose. As your guest. His gaze lowered to her lips. If that is what you want. And if I want more. His expression became still. Isolde placed her hand against his chest. You told me you loved me. I do. You told me you would wait until I remembered I belonged to myself. Yes. I remember. Vela's restraint finally broke. He drew her into his arms and kissed her. The kiss began slowly, carrying every fear they had survived. Then Isolde pulled him closer. His mouth deepened against hers, warm now from her blood, his hand settling firmly at her waist. There was no husband watching. No chapel hiding them. No borrowed moment. Only choice. When they parted, Vela kept his forehead against hers. Are you certain? Yes. About leaving him. He left himself behind long before tonight. And about me. Isolde touched the faint cut on his cheek. I am certain that I want tomorrow with you. He closed his eyes. For a human, tomorrow is a small promise. For a vampire, it is everything. She kissed him again beneath the falling snow. Mile called from the paths. The mountain is stable. The imprisoned house will remain sealed. Isolde looked at Vela. And Coldris. Mile glanced toward the stone. She wanted her family. A distant pounding came from inside. Mile's expression remained calm. Now she has them. Epilogue: the wife who chose herself. 3 months later, the royal court dissolved Isolde's marriage. Garin was declared dead, though no body was recovered. His lands were divided to repay the debts he had hidden. Isolde's family lost part of its fortune, but kept its home. Her parents did not forgive her immediately. Her sisters did. That was enough for the beginning. Isolde remained at Vela's manor. Not as a prisoner. Not as a secret. The first time they attended a royal gathering together, whispers followed them through every room. Isolde heard them. Vela did too. Do you want to leave? He asked. She looked across the ballroom. At the same people who had watched Garin humiliate her and said nothing. No. She took Vela's hand publicly. Let them watch. Later, beneath the terrace lights, Vela drew her into the garden. You enjoyed that, he said. A little. You frightened 3 duchesses. They will recover. His hand settled at her waist. You have become dangerous. I learned from you. No, you were always dangerous. He kissed her beneath the roses. Slowly. Without hiding. When he pulled back, Isolde smiled against his mouth. What am I now? She whispered. Vela looked at her as though the answer had lived inside him for years. Not Garin's wife. No. Not my possession. Never. His fingers intertwined with hers. You are Isolde. She kissed him again. And for the first time in her life, her name felt like freedom. Their love was forbidden by every law, but for the first time, Isolde's life belonged entirely to her.